over time sort of conditioned myself to being like, no, dude, you're not like some weirdo for doing this.
For
That
using
that breaks
facilities.
my heart that so many trans women feel like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same
It's
here.
not
It
great,
literally
but-
makes me so sad.
It's definitely weird to like, so I came out like at work, like I transitioned at work, and it was definitely weird to be like, yeah, so the reason I look this feminine is because I've been on hormones for a year, and still have people be like, but are you a real woman? Should you really be on here? And then like at other places, like I get weird looks. Like if I use the like men's restroom, people would be like, what the fuck are you doing in here?
Jeez.
Yeah.
I
It's
will
true that, like,
never
butch
understand
women-
that question.
Yeah.
Are you a real woman? It's like,
I don't know, but
Yeah, what does
Like-
that even mean?
What does it mean?
You're just doing this to creep on people. Ah, yes, thank you, sir. I would love to get like an invasive injection into my hip every 2 weeks for the rest of my life, just so I can creep on women. That's you caught
Aw.
me. That's
Yeah,
the
like to
entire
me,
plan.
like a real,
Right.
like
It's
to me, like a
dedication.
real,
You gotta admire it.
to me, like a real woman is like people that exist in meat space, and like fake women are like, I don't know, like Jessica Rabbit or like, you know, The Little Mermaid. Like those are fake women. They're imaginary women, but otherwise everyone else is real women.
yeah, I'm like, it's just ridiculous. And like I'm sorry that anyone trans has ever had to like justify their like who they are to people who like clearly don't give a fuck either way.
Exactly,
and are just like,
next.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Exactly, person in chat. We're starting at the bottom, so the only place we
Right.
can go is up from here. That's
Started from
the
the bottom.
well, that's the secret to all good entertainment, right? Is you always start with a low expectation, so that as you're rising tension, you know, you can get better and better results, right? You don't
That's right.
you don't start Game of Thrones with a dragon attack on the capital city, right? You build to that point.
but maybe they.
Okay, I'm still
should've.
traumatized by that final episode. So
Oh,
I don't know. That should have been
all
a
are.
true warning.
I never watched Game of Thrones, so can't relate.
That's
Oh,
Good choice.
good
I mean-
choice. Avoid it.
Pastel, I really love your outfit. Sorry.
Thank you.
Same here. I was thinking like
Mhm.
Pastel's outfit is fucking on point tonight.
I love that color. It looks so cute on you.
Same here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gosh, guys, what about my outfit? Like, what the heck?
I love your purple eyes.
I love
Kara
your logo.
Supernova, I'm obsessed with your hair. Like truly.
Thank you. I mean,
Barbie hair.
I picked it myself.
So
I want to know what.
yeah, so let's get started. We have one other person coming, but they'll be here soon, hopefully. So we'll just jump into it. Thank you all for being here. To my audience, thanks for stopping by. This is Amazon Only Roundtable. We have it Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a wonderful group of individuals here. So we'll start by introducing them. First, we'll go with Alice. After all, Alice, thank you for coming back for yet another week. How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty well. The topics are spicy this week, kind of. Not really. I think we're all going to agree, but we'll see. And past that, pretty good. Streaming on Twitch. Go visit Calliopean Club. What else did I miss? I think that's about it. Thanks for having me back again.
Okay, absolutely. Next, Dr. K. Dr. K, thanks for being here. My audience will be very familiar with you. You are always on our open panels, and we very much appreciate having you there. How are you doing today?
Your audience loves me, don't worry. Hi, I'm Dr. K. I'm a political scientist, but, you know, most of my actual content is non-political. It's mostly D&D stuff. I come onto primes and I, you know, do the occasional bit of politicking, just as a means to like vent my collective frustration at my own fields incompetence. My channel is The Amazing Dr. K. I always stream on Sunday. You can check me on IPA's channel on Monday, I think. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Ark. Ark, thank you for coming back. We had you here the other day. You stopped by the open panel. We had a lot of fun with you. And here you are for Amazon Only. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's my day off. glad I get to be here. Super enjoyed being on the open panel. Love watching the show. I listen to a lot at work, so you know, you're in my head a lot, rent free. But I have streamed in the past. I have a YouTube channel. I do a lot of gaming content. I'm ARKTK421. I really enjoy discussions and learning. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but I love to learn and offer my opinions.
Thanks so much. Next, we have Maddie. Maddie, you're back. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you coming through once again here on this panel. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, hi, I'm Maddie, also known as Maddie Cakes _, and I stream a lot about politics. Sometimes I do party games and other things, and just recap news, world events. My background academically is economics, so I tend to nerd out over that. But in real life, I'm a progressive organizer activist as well as a digital marketing professional. So yeah, I pretty much just stream about whatever I want to. And I am so happy to be back on Prime's channel.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, we have Pastel. Pastel, how are you doing today? Pastel, the MVP of last panel, changing literally everyone's minds. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm Pastel Dallas, or you can call me Abigail. I stream basically every day other than Wednesday and sometimes Thursday at just like 8 p.m. EST. It's at the twitch.tv/Pastel Dallas. Now my academic major is actually just mechanical engineering, so I'm a complete fraud. I'm not doing anything with politics. However, that might be changing soon. I might just change my major. Math, listen, I love physics. I love physics. Listen,
Don't do
everyone.
it.
I hate math though. Calculus? Why? Why is there a calculus 3? Why? Like, oh, static engineering, like A cross B, momentum, like why does that exist? No one needs that.
You don't love momentum?
No. Torque? So annoying. I hate everything. I had a really bad engineering class today, okay? I'm gonna be venting about engineering. I do IRL organization as well in my district. Really important for you to vote in your local elections. Everyone should get out there, at least talk about it, learn who your local politicians are. Yeah, that's about all.
Good
Okay,
shit.
thanks so much. Finally, we have Tara Supernova. Thanks for coming back. We haven't had you here in a while. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm happy to be back though. Happy that you're still doing this. I remember back when the time when you didn't talk, when I would come on, and that was a completely different experience. But yeah, I'm Tara Supernova _. I stream Monday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I stream politics and politics adjacent topics. I also have some expensive pieces of paper, but that's not really important or relevant right now. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, Iris, I didn't forget about you. I did. I promise I didn't forget. I always save my co-host for last.
Oh shit.
Co-host Iris, thank you for being so kind as to be here and help us put this all together, Iris. You do a lot of work for this channel, and I always want to make sure you're appreciated and recognized here. So thank you, Iris. How are you doing?
I'm quite good. Thanks for the kind word. Yeah, I actually had a really hard time falling asleep last night after that whole monarchist debate. Like, that was a blast. But I'm a history grad student. I've got a master's in history, and I'm in my final year as a PhD candidate. I love bringing a historical perspective to modern issues, but I also don't know a ton of shit as well. And I just love learning. I love ideas, even if they seem completely crazy, and just dealing with them in a charitable and open-minded way, because that's just fun for me. You should, I stream as well, so you should follow me on Twitch. It's Eris on Discord. And I also run Calliopean Club, which is an academic club kind of based in those ideas I told you I love. We also self-identify as snowflakes, so it's a very kind place, you know? Yeah, thanks for having me here, Prime.
Sure. Okay. So we'll get started. Hopefully we get our last person in here soon.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
Calliopean Club helped me with my engineering class, so you know they're great.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
That's really great to hear.
Hey, Stardust, you there?
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Fine. You have a target on your face.
Oh, my camera. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's adjusting. It'll go away in a second.
Um.
Oh man, Luke, you've turned out your targeting computer. Look out. Alright. It sucked.
Yeah, but Stardust, thank you for coming back. You were also here yesterday, and it was quite an event that you
yeah.
jumped in on. So
Yeah,
thank
very
you
much.
for coming back after all of that. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm alright. Okay, so we're just getting started now. So I saw in our group DM that we share that people seem to have trouble or have a problem with the first topic, the one in China and homosexuality. Do you all want to cover that, or you can skip it? I mean, we have 3 others, so that's why we have a bonus topic. Just for these.
Yeah, I totally don't
situations.
mind skipping it.
You
I was gonna say, I think the 3.
I love the bonus topics. I'd love to
Me
get to
too.
that.
I think that
Mhm.
the 3 other topics are way more interesting and less circle jerky.
Okay.
Yeah, avoid
Yeah.
sensationalist garbage every day.
Okie doke. All right. So we'll move on, and why don't we start with topic 3, and then we'll decide what'll be the next one after that. But we'll start with topic 3. Okay. Yesterday, many organizations held events or ran campaigns to mark International Women's Day. How do the activities and sentiments shared on International Women's Day present the status of women globally? What does societal engagement with IWD celebrations tell us about how gender inequality is understood? So yeah, I'll do in minute-long introductions, and then we'll jump right into it. So Alice.
You always do this. You switch around which topic is first.
I do it all the time. Yeah, we do it all the time here.
I have to remember that. Okay, so I think this one's going to be interesting. I kind of am looking more forward to hearing everybody else's. I think that Burger King attempting, like, that blew my mind when I saw that tweet of, like, women belong in the kitchen, and then they follow it up. I'm like, that's not a very well planned social, campaign. I think the fact that that's such a like a prolific thing, like on the internet, is kind of interesting. I think it's pretty clear in general that women are still fighting and are going to continue fighting. Past that, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing from everybody else here. So.
Okay. Let's go to we'll go to Dr. K. What do you think?
It's a great way to say, limit your activism and your awareness to women's issues to only one day a year, instead of this sort of being an ongoing thing that needs to be paid attention to. It's really cool that a lot of awareness and stuff is limited like that. They limit Black History Month to only a month of the year. They LGBT month, it's just June, right? Just stay asleep. Don't be actively proactive in these things all year round. You don't have to. Don't worry. Just this one day, right? And you'll feel good, and you can not pay attention to it again. Another fun thing about it is how, like with many things, corporations see this as a great opportunity to do woke advertising, and essentially try to frame liberation as something that can be bought and sold. And it's just the general fucking slacktivism garbage bullshit. It's great that there's awareness being brought to these things, but I think that that awareness should be all year long, not just a single day out of the year, or framed as something that you only need to pay attention to one day out of the year.
Thanks so much, Ark.
Yeah, I think the woman, the Burger King tweet was, I get what they were trying to do, turn a trope on its head. It just went way awry, because I don't think that we're separate enough from the suffrage of women to turn a trope like that on its head, because there are still literally people
I'm not sure
out
if
there.
everyone knows what the Burger King ad is. We should actually state
Just
exactly.
some stupid bullshit.
Yeah, but we actually, if people don't know what it is, then they're not gonna.
Yeah, we need to contextualize.
Sure. So I'll just say, Burger King tweeted out on International Women's Day, "Women belong in the kitchen." They were doing this in order to support a scholarship program that they're doing in order to have more women go into the culinary field, to have more women chefs, which is a good thing to do, right? Like expand women in the culinary field. That's great. But when you tweet it like that in order to, I think that they were trying to sensationalize and get eyes on them. I don't think that they were dumb and like knowing that like if they tweeted a statement like this, there's going to be some backlash. And I think that it's gross to co-opt such a harmful trope to get clicks. And it while you're at the same time you're trying to virtue signal. I don't fucking like that. I think that, and I think that honestly, International Women's Day is kind of just a big old virtue signal for companies to be like, hey, we give a shit about women's issues, so let's make a scholarship program for culinary stuff. When really, if you probably looked at Burger King's paying practices and hiring practices, I don't know how many women CEOs are in Burger King, but I am, I imagine it's like the rest of CEOs. So I think that International Women's Day, more often than not, gets used as a virtue signal for companies to support women's issues when really they're still co-opting harmful tropes.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, Maddie.
I think this sort of thing around using a international day of whatever, it seems more like a marketing ploy than an actual commitment to working towards more equitable working conditions and a more equitable society for women. It sort of feels like the month of, I think it's October for the NFL, where they all wear pink, and that is apparently supposed to signal some sort of activism, when I don't know that necessarily it is moving the needle at all. Ultimately, under a capitalist society, we have to remember that companies are going to do whatever they see as profitable and whatever is going to put them in a better position competitively. So it's hard for me to take seriously corporate celebrations or displays of solidarity with women. And yeah, so I don't know. For me, it just feels like kind of cheesy and like insulting a little bit.
Thank you so much. Pastel.
Yeah, I think the tweet was like just wrong and virtue signaling. However, I'd like to say, and this is something I'll see a lot of people brought up, they announced the scholarship 2 hours after they posted the 2 original tweets. So I like to believe in my head that they posted those 2 tweets, realized they fucked up, and then made the scholarship 2 hours later, and then posted it. But yeah, pretty virtue signaling, but companies are going to do whatever is profitable for them, as everyone else has already said. Women's issues should be a thing that's like all year round, and it sucks that it's like a one-day thing, but not much we can, or well, there is much we can do. It getting involved locally and bringing up these issues is something we can do all over the country. However, on a large level, I don't know.
Thank you so much. Next, Terra Supernova.
I'm pretty much in agreement with everyone on the panel here. It's just performative wokeness at this point. I think it's absolutely bullshit. Just a capitalist ploy to use a holiday to get people to spend money at their store. I don't think, and I also agree, it's probably in hindsight that they decided to make the scholarship. And also someone in chat mentioned, I don't know if it's verifiable or not, that they paid over $200,000 for an ad. And yet the scholarship was only $25,000. So yeah, I think it's all performative at this point.
All right, thank you. And Stardust.
So I think this whole Burger King thing, just the way that it unfolded was so hilarious and so poetic in a way. It's like very poetic in the way that they could not have done a worse job as far as an ad campaign, right? Like they literally chose the worst thing, and then they got called out for it, and then they made a scholarship, and this, as somebody else pointed out, the scholarship was not even the amount that they paid on the campaign, it's just the entire thing is hysterical to me. It's just I don't know what else to say beyond. I feel like everybody else here has pretty much said you know what I would say as far as like virtue signaling and things like that. But it is nice to see like see a company just fall on their face so hard over something like this. So
Thanks so much. Finally, Eris.
So this is gonna be very controversial, but I fucking love Burger King. I think they fight for women's rights every day. Okay, I'm kidding. But I'm just in general, I'm way more optimistic than you guys. Like maybe I don't know. I feel like we're kind of beggars, and I feel like we can't be choosers. Not about the Burger King thing, but just about International Women's Day. I think it's like useful to highlight an issue that isn't talked about regularly, especially to have like events focused on it. Because you can't just have like, I mean, there's so many issues, right? So you can't expect things to be focused completely on like women's issues all year round every day for when it comes to specifics like events um, and scholarships, etc. So to me, it makes sense to at least like highlight it at a certain time. Um, I think it's also a really unique opportunity to bring attention to women's issues that don't get talked about as often, like African women's issues or trans women's issues. Um, and I've been seeing that a lot lately, and with International Women's Day, and I think that that's super cool. Um, but I still, even though there are those positives, I do wish that we would actually just take the jump. Like I don't know how long we've been doing Black History Month, and still there is just not enough Black history in normal textbooks, even in a woke country like Canada. Um, I do Middle Eastern history, and it is so frustrating how big, much larger the European history departments are, and how much more we focus on European centric history in general. And like I just wish so much like I wish like we would have actually gotten a more like there are some ideas. Okay, I'm just gonna rant for 1 second. Prime, don't kill me.
That's
But
okay.
there are some things that drive me up the wall that lead to actual harm. Like so many white supremacists think that there have never been like African empires and African civilizations, and that shit can just be dispelled really quickly with just some basic level education in African history. And like that just does not exist. So I don't know. So I wish that we would just take those like months or days of learning and actually translate it into something genuine and put actual changes in policies, and I think we should focus on that rather than just saying, oh, like it's all stupid anyways.
So I'm gonna just are you dancing, Alice? I'm not sure what you're doing.
I'm dancing, but I also want to mention I posted the actual scholarship in chat just to verify some of the stuff people are talking about. Yes, it's two $25,000 awardees. It's only for employees of Burger King. It's part of their overall like scholarship program, and yes, they paid about $65,000 for a New York Times ad with the same language that they used in the tweet. So just to validate everything.
So I wanted to disagree with most of the people in the panel, and then agree with what Eris was saying. Yeah, so most people seem to think International Women's Day was, not worth it or too corporatized, and that might be true in the States. I mean, it's an opportunity for companies to jump on a bandwagon, but like actual on-the-ground activists are actually doing some good work into raising awareness to various issues, especially when we take a look outside of the States, because it's an international day, right? And if you look across, I mentioned this yesterday, that if you look across Latin America, for instance, there was a lot of work being done raising the issue of femicide. This is a huge problem in Latin America, and honestly around the world, but like Latin America, it's like epidemic levels right now. I'm probably gonna mix up the countries, but I know in one country, I want to say it was Mexico, they were gonna have these massive marches in front of like the presidential palace or whatever, right? And they put up barricades around the palace. Again, I hope I'm having the right country.
No, you're correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what,
it was
what?
Mexico.
Okay, and then what women did was they were writing the names of women who had been murdered on those barricades. Right, like I thought that was extremely powerful. And then they even like there were women fighting in other countries, right, against like security forces, like who come in there to like squash their demonstrations, right? Like women are marching all over the place for their lives, for their abortion rights. I didn't get to see what happened in Poland, but I'm sure something big has happened in Poland because abortion rights are rolled back there. So I think this is a perfect time on National Women's Day. I mean, look, you're absolutely correct when you say like women's issues should be an everyday thing. Absolutely, 100%. Not gonna disagree. But like I think it's a worthwhile thing to have a day where we all gather and like do a simultaneous push, right, to put these things out. I think there's value in that. What do y'all think? Stardust?
Yeah. So.
Go
Oh,
on.
sorry. No, did you
Oh,
want?
sorry,
okay.
Stardust, and then
well,
we'll go Alice.
Okay. So yeah, I can definitely agree. I think in other countries, I think it is it does highlight things, and whether like we want to believe it or not, there are a lot of people. There's a large portion of the population that doesn't really think about women's issues on a day-to-day basis. So I don't really mind there being a holiday for it. I just find the Burger King ad in itself hilarious. Like I laughed at it when I saw it. So, but yeah, that's it's just.
Alice?
Ceding to Dr. K. She had her hand up. So.
Okay.
Is
Yeah, we can hear you.
okay,
Okay, yeah.
excellent. Yeah, the BK thing is like it's nothing. It's merely endemic of the wider issues of the situation we find ourselves in, right? And it is excellent that there are good actions being taken internationally, and oftentimes I fully admit my politics and my scope tend to be focused a little bit more inward than outward, so I don't keep up with international events to the same extent I probably should. But yeah, the issue is that we have this day, but on it, like at least in the U.S., right, are we actually taking what is put forward on these days and then actually tackling the underlying problem of it? Because many of these corporations, many of these groups even that are parading on and on and on about International Women's Day, essentially use it to some extent as a not a cover, but as a way to distract from their own misperpetrations against women that are happening concurrently with their aggressive appeals to how pro-women they are, right? And it really is just like a classic manufactured consent tactic to essentially limit the scope of debate to this sort of narrow sort of activism lens, right? To sort of narrow what you believe is possible, narrow what we can discuss without essentially getting into social faux pas, right? To push a narrative that we should always be actively seeking to improve ourselves, and that there needs to be this constant reevaluation and this constant pushing, right? Like that's not going to get you very far because, for one, and obviously, Women's Day isn't the whole reason for this, but like, it's one way of saying like, well, you already have this. You don't need this much greater thing that actually solves the underlying issue at hand.
Okay, Alice.
So, I think I would have agreed with you about Prime, and I guess Eris a little bit, about International Women's Day and how, like, yeah, this is really American-centric, and, like, you guys aren't looking at the bigger picture. The problem is that when you look into the bigger picture, the International Women's Day marches are the smallest marches that have happened. If you look at Poland, this is literally the smallest march they've had the entire time that this has been ongoing. They've been protesting this for a long time. And you know what overshadowed all of those things? Fucking Burger King. So, Burger King was by the way, the fucking UK Burger King Prime. I don't know if you were aware of that, but it wasn't the US Burger King Twitter. It was the UK Burger King Twitter. So like, my problem is that I would have agreed with you. I would have said, oh yeah, you know, they're bringing real image, you know, real.
Wasn't
real...
there a post in the New York Times?
They had a post in the New York Times, but the Twitter blow up was the Burger King UK. It was not the US Burger King. They posted an ad. The US Burger King franchise has posted an ad in New York Times, but the UK Burger King posted a Twitter, you know, a tweet. I guess my problem is that, so you're saying like that this was a, you know, that International Women's Day doesn't get, you know, just used for like commercialization, but the only thing that was in the news about International Women's Day pretty much in every major facet was Burger King fucking up. It's not like the protests in Poland got real news coverage, because it's way more interesting to consumers to see Burger King get fucked. You know, so I guess that's my problem. Is I totally disagree with you, because yes, there were protests on International Women's Day, but they got no fucking coverage.
So I'll respond, then I'll go to Ark. I'll go you next. I would say to that I mean, that's not the fault of International Women's Day, right? Like, it's not the fault of us having this day set aside for women, or like the idea, the concept, right? The concept didn't do this, right? The activists didn't fall flat. I don't know about the size of the protests in Poland, right? But they've been going on for a long time, so whether it's a bigger size or whatever, I don't know. I think that they're doing a separate thing over there. But in any case, that's our media falling flat. Like, that's like a fault of our journalists, right? Like of our news apparatus that continuously goes for a surface level substance, right? So I would say again, Women's Day, like if International Women's Day is being used by activists to do activist stuff, right? To do demonstrations, to raise awareness, then they're doing their job. The media on the other side needs to do its job, the American media, right? And it's not like every news outlet around the world did the same thing, right? There were other news outlets that didn't give a shit about Burger King, right? Especially internationally, they were covering what was happening there. So it wasn't, you know, that's my contention.
They weren't. You claim that, but you just
why
don't claim that.
What news outlets? So every news outlet around the world was just covering Burger King. That's it.
That's pretty much the major front page stories for a lot of internet news. Yes.
No. I'm talking about internationally. Like that's it. No, nothing else.
Let's see. BBC posted this as the front page story, and they didn't post anything about
That's UK.
fucking Poland
That's
or
the
anyone
UK.
The
else.
stuff that I've been hearing
That's-
is all about Meghan Markle, like for Women's Day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's England.
No,
stuff.
Another
But that's
fucking
England.
thing that distracts us all.
But it's England, Alice.
It's all
So-
distractions. The
But
problem
I
is
agree. But I'm saying that like other news outlets have covered. I learned about all those things about International Women's. I didn't intuit this. I actually learned it from the news, right? So I don't. But
What-
well,
what-
let's
I
see.
guess I think
Let's go to
like
Ark
Prime,
first,
I
and then
agree
we'll
with you.
Mhm.
Prime, I agree with you because I was gonna make that point, right? Because after Eris and you got done speaking, I was kind of like, well, maybe, you know, International Women's Day isn't just this giant virtue signal, right? Like, if these are actual things that are going on, then maybe there's some merit, right? However, I would say that International Women's Day needs to try harder then, or like that the way, I guess how am I trying to say this? I think that the fact that Burger King tweet was part of the news and not Poland's activists is a symptom of sexism. Like, we don't want to actually address these issues. We don't actually want to look at these real protests that are really saying something about women's issues. We just want to concentrate on Burger King. So I would actually say that 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 points to Women's Day being used as a virtue signal. However, I think that it can be better, and I think that the media needs to do better in that, you know, Women's Day shouldn't be just this, you know, virtue signal. It should be addressing the actual issues. So I think that there's like points in column A and column B for both of you.
I do think that the media can do better, right? I mean, the media can always do better, but if that's the standard, then that's like, you know, then we're never gonna, you know, we're never gonna make anyone happy with any kind of movement,
Yes.
and everything. And I don't know, like, to me, the beauty in something like Women's Day is that it can mean something different to everyone. So, like, I mean, I live the shittiness of being a woman every day. I don't need a reminder. But for me, like what Women's Day is about like remembering the women who are not as privileged as I am. So it's a moment for me to take myself out of my own experience and my own shittiness of being a woman and like kind of be like, wow, a hell of a lot of women have it way worse, right? And to gain that perspective and to start helping them or to be thinking about that, gaining that mind awareness, right? Like most women, if most women in the West are more privileged than around the world, and it's easy to sit in our high horse and complain about things like mansplaining, but for women around the world, they are still fighting for the right to go to school, to not be forcefully sold as brides, to not be regularly raped in war. um, and even in the United States, there are Orthodox Jewish women that are forced to marry their rapists every day, and destroy their bodies, making 10 plus babies where they're not allowed to learn math. This stuff happens, and like for me, it's just a reminder to be thinking about those women, because those women don't often get attention on places like Twitter, or in our lefty high horses. Um, yeah.
So let's go to Pastel, then Dr. K.
Well, to clarify my position, I completely agree. There are things going on International Women's Day that are really good for activism. My issue is the fact that, like, Burger King was basically, like, the most talked about thing that I saw, at least. And so, like, I think we could be doing better if, like, news or media was covering, like, the more, like, intricate, like, topics of the more nuanced problems. I don't think International Women's Day existing is inherently a bad thing. I just think the way that we go about it is, probably not the best, at least. I think corporations definitely do use it just to virtue signal, like, as we saw with Burger King. I do think it can be better, though. Like, I do think it's probably, or no, I would say it's most definitely, like, net positive that it exists and that it's a thing and it can draw attention to all these issues. I just wish it was, like, used better, I guess.
Thanks so much. Let's go Dr. K, then Maddie.
I mean, you know, I think one, you need to examine what is the incentive, and this is for any issue ever, right? Is examine what is the incentive structure in place for this bad actor to be acting in the way that they do, right? Why is our media covering bullshit instead of actually important things? Well, it's because that's what is, financially incentivized, because that's, what gets, one, you aren't giving a platform to a group that could, in theory, call question to your authority, and two, it's easy sensationalist garbage that gets people rage clicking for days, right? So that's the incentive structure for why, our media sort of acts in that way. And I say that, when examining International Women's Day, I like the holiday, like, I do. I just think that it needs to get back to its roots that it had back in the 1900s, right? When it was a day that it wasn't co-opted by corporations, but rather celebrated women in the workforce, celebrated, who they were, their pivotal role in society, and let them have like a day where their contributions to society, were elevated and given a platform. Rather than what it is now, which is a really good opportunity to sell stuff. And that's what it is in the US, again. I'll keep in mind I'm being Amerocentric or whatever with this, right? But yeah, I think that it needs to get back to its roots as a holiday of women's labor and women's strength.
So we'll go to Maddie, Tara, then Ark.
I think I love that Dr. K brought up what its original intent was in the early 20th century. It's important to remember that International Women's Day was initially organized by groups of like women's socialist groups, and they were demanding, better pay, fewer hours, more workers' rights. And it's interesting that in just over a century, that message, that like pro-worker message, can
right
be
to vote,
distilled down. Exactly. And I agree. I think so. Prime, I agree with you in that this has the potential, and maybe in other areas of the world, it is more similar to this than it is here in the United States. But it becomes a day of standing up for your rights, of demonstrations, of speaking out for the rights of women, for the rights of workers. So I think, I don't know, and now sort of having learned more about the history of International Women's Day, it makes me kind of want to be like, okay, well, what can I do to pay homage to its original roots, right? Like, how can I make it so that we change the conversation from focusing on something stupid that some old male ad executive at a fast food company tweeted out versus making real change and making a statement about the way women are treated in the workforce, and also celebrating the heroes of worker organizer movements and socialist movements. So it's just been fascinating now that, like, in preparing for this and doing research, admittedly, I didn't realize that that was where the origins of International Women's Day, and it completely changes my view on how we could use it and leverage it and do right by those who originally founded the movement.
So I'll go to Tara and Ark next, but I just want to quickly respond, and I'll go straight to Tara. But like exactly what you're just saying there, right? This reminds me of both May Day and Gay Pride Day, or like the Gay Pride Parade.
Cool holidays.
Yeah. May Day, you know, being starting here in the States, I believe it's May 1st, right? The celebration of the union rights and the struggle of workers. But like that doesn't, we don't celebrate that here in the States. Like it began here, but like it spread internationally, and people, like, it's serious celebrations that happen, celebrations and demonstrations that happen all over the world for workers struggling, fighting for their rights, right? And they all know like the history of May Day, right, and like how it originated here. But then people internationally are shocked to know that Americans actually don't know the history.
Yeah,
That Americans, because it was actually literally stamped out here, right? Like
left-wing history in the U.S. is oppressed.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. So people here don't know. I imagine many of my audience don't know what May Day is at all. Maybe not even heard of it, right? But that's like part of the problem. So that's gone. And then there's like the Gay Pride Parade in New York, which was at first a celebration of the LGBT movement and a stand of defiance, right? But now it's gotten extremely corporatized. You have floats like with like sponsors, like banks sponsoring them, right? And like before, when it was like a celebration where people could just like jump in and like express themselves like from the sidelines, like come on and enjoy. Like no, stay away. Like we got police presence. The police who used to crack our skulls, right, are now protecting this parade because hey, it's got to go as planned. We got these sponsors. They don't like surprises, right? And so
co-option.
Exactly. So to replace that, there's another, and I keep forgetting the name of this. I'm sorry, but there's a secondary parade being made by other organizers to get back to that more revolutionary spirit, right? So these things happen. History is lost. Things are co-opted, like Dr. K is saying, and unless we're actually fighting for them, right? Then you'll see what we saw here with International Women's Day, right? Where like it's like it's a side note to a side show, being the Burger King ad, So let's go to Tara and then Ark.
It's funny that you say that not many people heard of May Day. This is literally the first time I've heard of it. Never heard of it in my life. I don't know if that's because I'm Canadian and it's more of an American thing or not. I don't know.
No, it's actually more of a Canadian thing these days.
Is it really? Oh fuck, if I know. I'm sorry. And funny enough, like you said earlier, we're so self-centered. We don't have a whole lot of knowledge about what's going on in the rest of the world. I think part of it is because of these capitalist organizations. They come in and they bastardize the meaning of these days, and completely divert of what the day is supposed to be about, and it's supposed to be about women and women's rights, and make it about a misogynistic joke. Like that, how far off the mark can you be? It's actually mind-boggling.
The point is to defang, I suppose.
Perhaps it's just a sensational marketing, like you said, but like honestly, it's
having worked in like entertainment marketing and with big brands like that, half the time when I see shit like that that's so toned up, it's because their marketing departments and social media departments are run by like old white men who think that they're still kind of stuck in that like edgelord mentality where they're like, no, we're creating culture, we're getting this, we're starting a conversation, we're just sparking conversation. And it's like, no, you're parroting like misogynist bullshit, and it's unhelpful and
We're taking back
unnecessary.
misogyny, baby.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, fine. So, did you need to say anything else, Tara? Or
Oh no, that was it.
okay, Ark, please.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk about how I think that you could have big companies virtue signaling in maybe a correct way, right? Like instead of doing like treating a misogynistic quote and then like having like two $2,500 scholarships, like maybe tweet about how you're gonna like get together women employees, a panel of women employees, and talk to them about their needs, and you're going to promote that, or like talk about how we're going to have an internal review on pay structure in regards to sexes, and like instead of just saying like oh, women need to be in the kitchen and we're going to give some people $50,000, instead maybe actually draw it to the original point of Women's Day and have like, hey, Burger King is getting together a panel of women to talk about what Burger King could do better and how in our treatment of women employees, and that could be a way where you get to have your cake and eat it too.
Oh,
That makes too much sense.
Stardust. Oh, and Stardust and then Pastel.
Nice.
I think there are a couple people who had their hands up before me, so I don't want to.
Oh no. You haven't had a chance to talk about, so go ahead, and then we'll go to Pastel and Alice.
Okay, yeah, I agree that Burger King's marketing was very tone deaf. I think if anything, I kind of like to look at it in the light that if we needed any proof that Women's Day and women's issues need to be focused on, Burger King definitely set the example for that, right? Just how phenomenally bad the campaign was. I do think even within the U.S., we have lots of communities that are marginalized more than others, female communities that are marginalized more than others, right? And if you like break down the conditions that different women of different backgrounds live in, it can be widely different, right? So I do think that the International Women's Day, I think this focus on women's issues still needs to be there, because we're like, as much as we can say like, yeah, it should be every day, it's not happening every day. And you know, whether we want to believe it or not, like we still have male friends who make like off-color jokes, and we still have issues of sexual harassment and things like that, right? So I don't think these campaigns really, to me, they don't matter in the long run, right? I look at the Burger King campaign, I laugh at it, and I'm like, you know, it's stupid, it's idiocy, and if we needed an example, there it is, right? It's pretty much there. Like, I don't know. I find it. I find that yes, some of these campaigns may be virtue signaling, but I am very glad that to rather have a company that is attempting to focus on these issues, even if they're being disingenuine or whatever, or they're not really, they don't really care. I'd rather have them focusing on it and faking that care than not have any focus on it whatsoever, right?
Okay. Let's go to Pastel, Alice, and Dr. K.
Yeah, so I completely agree. At least, like, while it may just mostly be virtue signaling, at least they're like doing something. I'd rather take anything over nothing. So, like,
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good thing. I really do wish Burger King did more. Like, they could I don't even think you could argue like, oh man, if they did anything more than what they did, they would have a like loss of profit. Which I mean, I guess they would technically have some more. But like, well, what was the 2 scholarships? $2,500. That's it.
25,000. So 50,000.
25,000. Okay, 50,000. And how much was the ad they ran in the New York Times? Was it like 67,000?
Roughly 65,000. Yes.
Yeah. See, like, I don't know. I think it would be far better if they like, you know, maybe did more, or actually like talked about the history of the women's movement. That would be really cool. But you know, they just made 2 scholarships. That's, I mean, again, it's better than nothing. I just wish we, whoever said like to get back to the roots of the movement, I think that would be great. Like that would have been like amazing.
No.
Sorry, let's go to Alice and then Dr. K.
So my only point in all this, and I'm going to shut up about this because it's just clearly not getting anywhere, is that we're talking right now about Burger King and about whether it's being co-opted and whatever, and you just brought up like the fact that we're like spinning off like other types of days like this because we are seeing that they're like that they're turned into like, you know, essentially a way to make money essentially. And I guess I just don't understand how anyone can say that this is not just like being co-opted as a way to make money, as you know, to that point of Burger King's literally just like trying to get their name out there, you know, bring awareness to their brand, whatever. Okay, and all the while we have all these other issues that just don't get publicity because they don't bring these other, you know, it's not going to bring a newspaper money to run an ad or a story about Poland or you know, protests wherever else. I feel like you know, yeah, we should get back to the root of this movement. We should, but I don't think media is going to help us in that. But I also don't think anyone gives a fuck. So I guess we have to figure out like a better way to be public without needing to rely on like this type of media. I don't really know how that kind of thing gets solved. Like nobody's wrong here. It's just we're not getting publicity.
I just feel. Oh, we'll go to Dr. K then Tara. I don't think you're wrong. I'm agreeing with you that there's been a lot of corporate corporate takeover of these things, right? Like more of this pink washing bullshit, right? So I'm agreeing with you. That's the case. But I think what you're doing is mixing 2 things, right? Like the media and corporate response to these types of events, right? Like International Women's Day, like Gay Pride Parade, like MLK Day, right? Like MLK Day, like they use it to like fucking sell mattresses, right? Like they're like, you've seen like the I Have a Dream ads, and like one day you will have a comfortable like fucking mattress to lay on, like this is a thing that happens. But is it the fault of like the activists? Is it like the fault of the spirit that drove people to create MLK Day in the first place? Should we not have it because corporations will take any opportunity?
Yes. We shouldn't fucking have it. We should do something else rather than have a fucking day for it.
Why?
Like,
why? I don't understand.
You keep responding in such a weird way. Like
I feel the same way about you right now. Because I feel like our positions are closer than you're making them seem to be.
They are very close. It's just that I don't understand why. So if corporations are going to destroy every type of singular day like this, like today we can advertise about women, tomorrow we can advertise about the gays, next day we can advertise, then we need to do something different. That's clearly not working for activism.
So I disagree with your framing of this. And
I disagree with yours.
So. I understand. So what I'm trying to say is that like corporations will do what corporations do. Bad actors will do what bad actors do, right? And that's separate from the actual celebration and the work that can be done that day to raise awareness, right? I think so. So this is a big argument. So this is basically the same argument as to Black History Month in general, right? So people say that, well, one, it's the shortest month, so there's that. But 2, that every day should be Black History a day, right? Like because Black history is American history. Like these things are intertwined, right? Unlike like in a textbook, you'll see there's like a separate section, right? For like, oh, this is a thing that Black people did, right? There was slavery, and then that ended, and then skip to the Civil Rights era, and then that was cool. And then, I don't know, like George Washington Carver did stuff with peanuts and, you know, whatever, right? and that's it, right? Other than understanding that Black history is like intertwined completely with American history, and that we've been here every step of the way. So just like our Asian brothers and sisters, just like our Hispanic brothers and sisters, right? Like that they've been have achievements all along, right? But the reason why we have Black History Month, the reason why I believe it's still a valuable thing to have, is because it gives. If we don't have it, then people won't even fucking bother. They won't even bother to think of these things, right? Like it gives us a moment in time to reflect and to think of the history of all these things, right? And I think that in itself is valuable, and time to organize around these things. Now, because with that attention, that gives us mind space, right? So we can organize around these moments for a larger movement, right? Okay, so you came to International Women's Day. Maybe you didn't know about it before, right? But like you decided, like, this is the day I'm going to step out and maybe join this demonstration. Well, that's a great way for organizers to get in contact with you. It's like, well, we're doing other things throughout the year, right? But the fact that a corporation may also use this to shill for themselves. Well, I mean, that's not the fault activists.
I could be wrong, but I think what Alice is concerned about is this idea that like we have Black History Month, now racism is over. We have International Women's Day, now sexism is over. And I think that that's the point that Alice is speaking to, of the concern over International Women's Day. It's like it's just this patch, and now we have the day. Now we don't have to speak about it anymore. But sexism. Is that true, Alice?
Yes, that is accurate to what I'm saying, and it's clear because we keep reiterating the same point, and you're agreeing with me, but then just wanting to get a point in. I'm
not trying to. Oh, hold on, that's unfair. I'm just responding to you.
It's being co-opted, and the commercialization of these types of movements is the problem, because it literally is portrayed to the public, who are stupid. Remember, public is really dumb. The public sees International Women's Day as, oh, Burger King made this stupid fuck up. And then that's where it stops. And yes, the public is pretty stupid overall.
They do it with gay rights every year.
Yes, exactly. It's the same fucking thing.
While refusing to
gay rights are solved.
The underlying issue.
Right. It's kind of the issue of like if there was a trans rights day and someone would say hey, trans rights are still an issue, then a asshole could say oh, well, you have trans rights day, so why are you complaining?
Yes, and that's what they get used for.
I already get that.
Yeah, me too. I get the same thing, and this day gets used the same way.
Okay, you disagree, that's fine. Terra Supernova, Dr. K, and then I think someone... Oh, Stardust, please.
Well, originally you said Dr. K was supposed to go before me, so I don't know if you
Just go, please. Terra Supernova, okay, Dr. K, yes.
Sorry. Sorry, okay, alrighty. Yeah, so I'm basically just piggybacking off of what Alice said. It is a distraction at this point. It's a distraction, and it's not doing its job. It's not being effective. The fact that we have a day, yes, it's great. It's great that we can acknowledge that there's an issue, but it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's an inherent flaw in the purpose of the day when it's not accomplishing what it's setting out to do. So at the end of the day, is it a good thing to still have it? I'm almost on the camp. No, we need education reform. We don't need a fucking day. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. I think I said Pastel, then Dr. K. Did I say that? Oh, sorry, I just Stardust. Sorry, I apologize. Stardust and Dr. K.
I think Dr. K was before me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Dr. K, then.
That's all good. I've been taking notes. I'm going to take up a while anyways. It's all good. So yeah, the fake concern that a company shows, it is entirely exists to just shut you up for a year, right? Nothing is going to change unless you tackle the underlying superstructure. And these companies, they're never going to do that because, refusing the roots of the movement and doing this performative bullshit is exactly what follows the profit incentive, right? Preserving the superstructure, preserving things exactly the way they are, is completely within the interest of those in power because they benefit from keeping it exactly how it is, right? Corporations aren't going to liberate you. They won't even sell it to you. You have to demand it. You have to demand it loudly. Keep it the holiday, honestly. But if you want to help it get back to its roots and to make it, something that isn't just performative, it needs to be a day that CEOs and that the most powerful misogynists, the most powerful people, in preserving this superstructure, absolutely fear the approach of, right? They should dread the approach of this day if you're a misogynist, right? It should be a day of education, sure, but it needs to be more than that. It needs to be something that, powerful corporations and powerful misogynists don't want to be associated with, that there is no profit to be made on International Women's Day because of the stigma attached to it, right? Just like with Pride, this needs to be a day that becomes a riot again, right? Like, that'd be my suggestion personally, but I don't know how everyone else feels.
Sardis, please.
So this might just be like a very I guess like personal viewpoint about this whole topic, but I personally am I think that it is beneficial, although I know that corporations don't have our best interests at heart. Their interest is basically the bottom line and whatever is the most profitable. I understand that, but as somebody who's grown up and is not the norm, or wasn't the norm growing up, and never saw myself on TV or never saw myself in media or even commercials, I think it is important that that people get to see this representation, right? And get to see themselves and get to see themselves normalized, right? And then secondly, I think that yes, we need to focus on more important issues, but the impact of never seeing yourself and never being considered normal growing up is huge on your self-esteem, right? So I think that is, I think we're really like oversimplifying it when we say like, oh well, these corporations are only doing it for money, and we shouldn't even have a day because they're just exploiting it, right? Yeah, sure, they're exploiting it, but I would rather I would rather see like more people get normalized in media, right? And I think yes, we can focus on other issues. We have to, because there are still women who are very marginalized in America, right? And there are women who live in poverty and who don't have access to clean drinking water, and whose children grow up without access to clean drinking water, and who grow up with lead poisoning, and even the most trace amounts of lead lead to cognitive issues later on in life, right? And behavioral issues later on in life. So I think that, like, yes, focus on these things, but you shouldn't be relying on a corporation in the first place to focus on these things. The fact that you're like putting all of this, you're making this corporation shoulder all of the weight. If you actually care about it, then you'll go out and you'll speak about it.
Pipes to connect this thing's output to this.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maddie, please. Maddie, then Mark. Sorry. Maddie?
Yeah, no, I think that brings up a really interesting point, and it echoes actually what someone was saying in my stream and my chat, saying, well, while it's frustrating because you would hope that the educational system would teach you a lot of these stories or make you aware of these prominent people, whether it's like for Black History Month or Women's Month, International Women's Day. But that is one thing that is positive that comes out of set days like this, is that you do get exposed to stories and people who are massively impactful and influential in history and helped drive forward in our pursuit for equity and equal rights. Like this friend of mine was saying, he said, Black History Month taught him the story of Doris Miller, who's getting an aircraft carrier named after him, and he wouldn't otherwise known about it if it weren't for Black History Month, because there's this focus on all these other stories. Now, granted, like, it's not a good replacement long term, obviously, for just making sure that those marginalized people or people from those marginalized communities are part of like the normal teaching curriculum. Like every American student should learn these stories rather than just the narrow white-centric version of history that they typically get. But that is one advantage to having days like this, is that it gives activists and organizers and nonprofits and even corporations like the chance to highlight stories that maybe people otherwise wouldn't know. And then they can, it sparks that pursuit of knowledge, that intellectual curiosity, so people can dig further and learn more. But I guess that's one advantage I could see.
Okay, let's go to Pastel, then Dr. K.
Yeah, so this conversation made me realize that I wish I did more locally, like setting up some type of like discussion group or a forum or anything locally on International Women's Day, because like I definitely should have. I don't know why I didn't even like think about it, because it just definitely slipped my mind. So I'm like already planning on stuff to do within a couple weeks, hopefully, or even like already going to like write stuff down for next year, because we shouldn't be relying on just corporations to hope we get stories out there. Our local activists can be doing like big things for the community to make sure that like topics are made aware of. So I'm already going to be working on changing that so I can actually do something. And I would encourage that everyone everywhere who's watching the stream also tries to do that.
Dr. K, please.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can all do a lot more. I wish I'd done more with CC as well. That's why these conversations are so important to have, right? To examine like our own role in perpetuating stuff too.
Yeah, like I'm a big person for like doing things pragmatically, and like I definitely like dropped the ball yesterday with doing things.
Please, Dr. K.
Yeah, and I'm not saying do away with the representation, right? In fact, to Stardust, I would say not only does there need to be more representation, there needs to be representation for places that we are essentially never shown women in our media, right? And not just our media, but just, you know, in conversation in general, right? Like, we need people to stick up for women janitors, for women longshoremen, for women construction workers, you know, for not just the high achievers, but for everyone, right? Irregardless of where they fall in the class structure. For those who are unemployed, for those who are, you know, being shanghaied and held in concentration camps by ICE right now, for shit like that, right? And I think that, yeah, that's not going to happen as long as we allow this to continue to be a carnival of performance and have our, you know, information and our activism limited by the scope of what corporate and what governmental structures deem appropriate. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree. More representation. Again, make Women's Day a riot again. And I'm gonna ask the chat, like, whatever you guys are doing, what do you guys think about that?
Let's go to Stardust. You're muted, Stardust.
Oh man, kind of jumping in the chat here. It's
Sorry.
kinda funny.
By carnival of performance, what do you mean?
Like,
Hello?
you're seeing this,
Oh,
yeah?
sorry. I'm sorry. Just a second.
She's just asking you to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah. I'm asking, like, what do you mean by carnival of performance? What does that mean?
It like there's this trend of being like, well, you know, like the BK thing is a super easy example of this, where it's like, you know, essentially taking the breadth of the female experience of all we can do to help them, and, you know, narrowing that down to a misogynistic joke with a, you know, tiny scholarship attached, or with a tweet highlighting like your female drone pilots and then not doing anything more than that. Or how the LAPD was like, we are stand for International Women's Day. Meanwhile, they are simultaneously rehiring a cop with a long history of abuse against women on the exact same day. Like, when I say something is performative, I mean that they are saying one thing, but are actually doing you know, something completely different. When eyes are not focused on them.
You can respond, Stardust.
Okay, yeah, I guess I would follow that up with the question of, like, yes, these things are performative, but do you think that these things can have the potential to shift cultural ideas
What do you mean by these things?
Towards actions, like towards actual action, right? Like so like the things that you're talking about, right? Yes, they're performative on Women's Day, but these are things that still have an impact on people growing and people in the future, right? Because it shifts culture a little bit when we all see, even if it is performative, we know it's performative, but the end goal,
I think its ability to
like,
shift is unlikely. There are
you
certainly
don't
people who will be shifted by it, but I believe that the people who are shifted by it were already amicable to the message in the first place, and that people who are dead set to be misogynistic or maintaining existing power structures will not, in fact, be moved by a couple tweets on International Women's Day.
no,
Now,
I mean,
if
I
it
don't
was a
mean
riot
even by,
again, that it certainly could start changing some minds, and I think that would be very interesting and very helpful to all
I
women.
would
if
probably
we
do the
did that.
exact opposite.
actually, so what I would say is actually, so when I say, like, shifting culture, right? I talked about representation earlier, right? And how not seeing yourself in media, it does affect your self-esteem when all your
Yeah,
dolls
and
are
I'm
like
saying
different
keep that
race than you.
representation. That's
Yes,
good.
yes.
It needs to be
Let me finish. Let me
expanded.
finish. I'm not finished. So even that representation, right? That representation has a huge impact on somebody growing up, right? Just like I would argue that even these performative things that these corporations do will have an impact on people growing up, people developing their sense of self, right? So I don't see, like, I don't see what the issue is with, yes, that, like, it's performative, but it's still more, like, it's more acceptance. You see acceptance, and we become accepting of that, right? It becomes the norm, right? If you make these things the norm, then eventually people will be taking better actions, right?
Certainly, like if you hit a tank with a stick, right, and you leave a dent in it, yeah, you have done damage to that thing, right? You have made a dent, as it were. But you are not going to be fundamentally defeating or changing the underlying structure unless you take more drastic measures than what you're doing now, right? I think
Well, it's gradual. Culture doesn't change overnight. Culture changes over, like,
I
decades.
most certainly disagree. Culture is completely arbitrary, and we can change it as fast or as slow as we would like. It is simply that we have all culturally agreed that culture cannot be changed quickly. That is the reason that we cannot change it quickly.
Well, the culture tends to stay within a generation, right? So when a generation dies out, then it shifts, right? And then that generation dies out, and it shifts, right? To force cultural change is kind of like, it's. I feel like it's very.
If a culture is fundamentally destructive, it should be changed as fast as possible.
Like, you say that if we have the ability to change the culture, then the culture can change. Like, that's the exact thing. Of course, if we have the ability, but that's like having the abilities is culture itself, right? Like the group of people. That's why it's challenging to change. I don't know. It just seems like begging the question. Seems like a moot point.
Again, there's a fundamentally broken superstructure, and I am saying that it needs to be changed as quickly as possible, and our energy needs to be pushed on it as much as possible. And so saying, well, let's do this incrementally, I think fundamentally, yes, it could be done incrementally, but that will cause people to who otherwise would have had their underlying problems solved to have to wait, another 30, 40 years to have those problems solved instead of, changing them now.
Sarah, you can respond, then we'll go to Ark.
Okay. I think this whole idea of, like, it needs to be a riot again is still it's still not really addressing people who don't have the ability to go out and riot, right? Like, they're working people and people who.
Well, yes, you riot for those who can't.
Right, but there are people who are still working, and they are still struggling to put food on the table, and a corporation doing these minor steps, right, is still changing something that their children see, right, on television.
Something. It's not enough,
media,
though.
right? Well, of course it's not enough, right? But
which is why I demand more.
Let her finish.
Yeah, so the whole thing about this being like it needs to be a riot again. Riots are destructive, right? And like, while
yes.
I'm pro rioting, um, they often destroy the things that these people in marginalized communities work for, right? And if you spent like 20 years as an immigrant, you came here, you built a shop, and
Well, that's
you know
why you
everything
write in the
around you is
wealthy
getting.
communities, not the poor communities.
Oh, okay. So we're able to like just designate that.
Yes,
That's just something
actually,
we can
during
control a
the
whole
LA
crowd.
George Floyd protests, we actually did designate just that, and we did do.
Okay,
just
but how
that.
many crowds are easy to control like that? They're really not, right? Like I'm all for protesting, but crowd control is so hard, especially
That's why
with
you
protests.
organize this stuff out beforehand.
Let's go
It
to.
still
she's
doesn't
aware
work.
of that. That's rude.
Let's go to Ark.
What was that?
Let's try Ark for a second, and then we'll go.
No,
to...
I didn't.
Sure.
Genuinely didn't catch that.
Come on, Ark.
If they want to clarify, whatever, I can wait. But yeah, I guess I kind of think a little bit we're going around in circles, and one thing that I learned in I love Calliopean Club, but I the Discord that I kind of came from, that I learned to hone my debate skills, is called Intel. There's someone here, they're watching and stuff like that. So hi, Intel. What we try to do is focus on solution-based debate, right? Or solution-based argumentation. So they kind of steered me in a direction to kind of ask a question, which is, given the audience we have even now on the stream, how can we effectively communicate what issues matter most to us as women, and what can be done by each of us to make these changes a reality? So we can say like International Women's Day isn't doing what we want, right? But what can we do, I guess, to make International Women's Day better and get our needs met?
I have some solutions, like right now. I mean, first of all, I think Prime doing what he does, using a male platform to voice, to platform women every week, and giving women the majority of the room to speak. I think that's a huge part of that. So like, Prime, good on you for doing that shit. On top of that, I think just in general, I mean, I'm really biased with history and learning. Like, I think using it as an opportunity to, like, if you normally play a video game with your friends, like, why don't you be like, okay, guys, let's watch a documentary today. Let's, like, about, like, I don't know, like women's rights in India or something. And just try to use the opportunities that you can on an individual basis. I mean, even if you're doing it by yourself, read a Wikipedia article on I don't know, like some random women's issue, right? Or read some feminist literature, like anything like that. I think education is just so fucking powerful. And yeah, I just like, if you have the ability to, if you have the internet, you've got like the greatest human resource at your fingertips. So that's what I would recommend for people to do.
Okay. Stardust and Dr. K, and then Pastel. I see.
I like those ways of advocating. I also encourage people to go out into their local communities, volunteer in those local communities, and be good role models for the younger generations, right? And one thing I also try is like not to like shame younger people for what they like, right? We were all young once, and we all had some questionable tastes. So I think that, and then also like reading feminist literature, trying to plant those ideas in the younger generation is super important.
Dr. K, and then we'll go to Pastel.
Yeah, that's all excellent stuff. I like all of that. I would say, in addition to that, also consider, doing some collective action, actively calling out, misogynistic power structures within your community, and actively making steps to improve the living conditions of, women. Things like, seeking better employment safeguards, actively protesting for a higher minimum wage, because as you can statistically find, women are more likely to hold lower wage positions. So if the base floor is higher, then everyone benefits, including women. you know, stuff like this I would also recommend in addition to what is suggested by Eris and by Stardust.
Pastel, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, and so like locally bringing like other solutions, bringing up the fact that like in developing nations we could be doing so much better over there to make sure the women over there are getting like proper health education and all of this, which if we start doing on like a local level, even though we can't really have much impact other than like donations, we can make this an important issue to where people locally are running with this in their platform, and then state level, and then finally getting to the federal level where we can actually get like stuff being done federally and real support to the women in developing nations. Like there's a bunch of things we could be doing, which I think we definitely should be doing as like solutions to this.
Yeah, I think that you know, even if you're not like an activist type person, you're not like loud, or you don't like, I don't know, encountering conflict. Like that's the kind of person I am. That stuff really stresses me out. So I think that there's so many other ways, like just the way that you can just change someone's mind with a great argument, learning great argumentation skills, and and just like promoting that kind of knowledge between people. Like people have a lot way more power to do stuff and make changes than they realize, like on a personal scale. I mean, just as simple as like authors like writing stories and promoting literature, like just fiction, like women's fiction and stuff, and movies, I think can also really help.
Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, and we will. Sorry, it's getting busy outside of my door, so if you hear background noise, I apologize. Yes, we'll go to. We're going to use. Let's go to the bonus topic next, and then we'll do topic 2 last. All right. So, bonus topic. Switzerland has banned the burqa and the niqab from being worn in public. The ban is on non-medical face coverings in general and does not mention religious garb. However, the campaign for the ban used Muslim imagery while asking the public to stop extremism. Is this ban helpful? Are the Islamic religious coverings a sign of oppression? If it is or is not, should the government intervene to stop the use of the burqa? Excuse me. Is this what helping Muslim women looks like? So we started this conversation last night. It quickly spiraled. So hopefully it'll be better here. So yeah, we'll try it again. So talking about the burqa. So again, there's a burqa ban that happened within Switzerland. At least was approved by the voters in Switzerland. So we'll start with Alice for the minute-long introduction. Yeah.
Sure, I'm not going to use the full minute again. Basically, my only real problem with this is the same problem I always have, that no, this is not helping. Overall, you're just restricting like religious freedom for no real reason. Especially the messaging, I think, is stop extremism is a little bit excessive. Having options is always good. Encouraging like women to feel comfortable with having options like this. But I don't know. I think it's a little too far to put in place a ban on a piece of clothing that essentially is obviously targeted at a particular religion. You're not helping them. They're still going to be oppressed by their community. You're not really doing anything. It just looks good on your, PR sheet or something. So not a big fan of this type of movement. Not a big fan of this type of what I think is Islamophobic like messaging in general. So not a big fan of this overall. Not for any aspect of it.
Okay. Please, let's go to Dr. K.
America and the European Union fuck up the Middle East, right? And now there are a whole bunch of refugees coming from the Middle East and North Africa too, actually. And so now, in order to discourage, European countries have to take in these refugees because, they fucked up their country. So now they're coming to the country that fucked up their country as a way of trying to start a new life there, right? And essentially these countries are passing this stuff to say, nah, not this one. You don't want to come to this one. This one's bad for you, man. As a way of trying to pass the buck on to others, right? France most famously so. France obviously being very well known, I would say, for its colonization of Islamic countries, especially Algeria and Syria. That said, right? They're trying to enforce their cultural norms onto people who are coming into their country, when really, and even if you are against, the burqa and all that, the fastest way to get them to stop doing that, whatever behavior you don't like, even if you are some like violent, disgusting nationalist, right, is to say, all right, we are going to fully make you feel welcomed within our country. Thus, you incentivize them integrating culturally and adopting the cultural behaviors of your country because you treat them well there, right? Like that is the quickest way. If you look at the history of Southern European immigrants and Irish coming to the United States, that was how you quickly got them to give up their cultural traditions and integrate in, right? And whether that's a good or a bad thing, it's a very, very complicated topic, and I think it's kind of subjective one way or the other. Yeah, it's up to your opinion, right? Like,
So, just short introduction. And we'll move on.
Fuck the bands.
Ark, thank you.
Yeah, so I wish that I was more educated on this topic, right? Because one aspect that I really liked about this question was where you said, like, whether or not you believe it is oppressive to women, or I'm sorry, I don't have it up in front of me, but that part of the question, should it be legal? Because I think that it's kind of a way of these governments to have their cake and eat it too, as in they can say, well, this isn't Islamophobic. These women are oppressed, and that's why they're having to wear the burqa. So even though it is absolutely Islamophobic, to ban people's culture and way of doing it, whether or not you disagree or find it, whatever you find it, it's a way of them being able to virtue signal and be Islamophobic at the same time.
Okay.
But that's my point.
Sure. Maddie.
It's interesting that the rationale seems to be that, these women are oppressed, and what this does is it removes the oppression, when again it's just mostly men telling women what is acceptable to wear and how they should present themselves. I also take issue with the framing of it, where they're framing it as fighting extremism, as if there's no possible way for there to be like that Islamic quote extremism is really the threat, and that threat culminates in what women choose to wear. I don't see this outrage being matched for Catholic nuns. I don't see it being matched when I think it was a few years ago when France tried to ban the burkini, which is just a full body covering for Muslim women to wear when they like go to the beach. And I don't see people having similar outrage when people wear scuba gear that covers their entire body. So I think this is entirely misguided. It reeks of misogyny and of trying to take control over how women present themselves. I happen to have quite a few friends who are Muslim and who either choose or not choose to wear a headscarf. And in all the cases of those who do, and a good friend of mine lives in Egypt. She moved there with her husband. And there, she always wore it. She says, this is a sign, at least for me, she's like, I take it as a sign of liberation, because I'm not relying on like my beauty or whatever. Like it helps. I feel as though I'm respected more for my mind, for other things in this case. So it means something different to different people, and to just assume that it's a sign of oppression and that they'll remove that oppression by forcing the women and presumably punishing the women if they choose to wear it is really misguided.
Thanks so much. Next, let's go to Pastel.
I'd just like to point out something someone in my chat said, that, and I quote, "These women are being oppressed, so I'm going to tell them what they can and can't do to set them free." And I think that really hits home of, yes, let's try and liberate these women by telling them what they can and can't wear. That's a flawless logic. I've never seen better policy in my life, honestly. This is great. Yeah, no, I completely agree. This is very, like, very, very bad policy, and I think this can lead to alienation of a community, which is, like, probably the worst thing you could do if you're trying, like, get people to, like, be integrated into your country, or at least, like, even treat them with any decent amount of respect. Alienation is so bad on, like, every fundamental level. So yeah, I think this is, like, terrible policy. It's just objectively bad. I don't think there's anything positive about this. Any country that adopts this policy, terrible. The legislators need to be fired. Vote them all out.
Thank you. Tara?
I'm just going to mention one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is representation and how important it is to have representation, and how banning something like a face covering makes it even more strange and creates even more, I shouldn't say strange, but you guys know what I mean, even more abnormal in society. And it makes it even more likely that people are going to have Islamophobia. It's just going to create more problems than they're trying to fix with it. And from what I understand, I cannot see any other reason other than Islamophobia for banning the face covering. I cannot understand for the life of me how it would even be justified. The article that we were given said something about potential riots at football games, but like we're wearing masks now anyway, so I don't know. I guess that argument goes out the door. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to Islamophobia, and it's going to create more problems than it's going to try to solve.
Stardust, I'm actually going to save you for last. I'll go to Eris, and I'll go to you last. Stardust. Oh, sorry, Eris, excuse me. Eris, you there?
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize you wanted to talk to me. Okay. I'm gonna take such an opposite view, and everyone's gonna hate me. I'm just wondering, do I think that these garments, particularly the niqab and the burqa, are signs of oppression? Yes. I don't think it's Islamophobic, since wearing these garments are not a requirement in Islam, and it's specifically a cultural issue that exists in plenty of other religions like Orthodox Judaism, which I've been a victim of myself. So that's why I'm personally really intense with this. I think we should be discouraging the use of those garments, and I'll get into why I think they're oppressive probably later, because it'll take forever. However, I'm not sure if making them illegal is the right way to do so. I know that I know the response is going to be, oh, let women wear what they want. But this liberal attitude also ignores the power structures and the incentive structures that exist to pressure women to be wearing these things to be seen as a marriageable, attractive, and modest. And everyone wants those things in those communities, right? In most communities. I don't buy feminist arguments that these garments are quote unquote symbols of personal freedom and diverse liberation. I don't think the history of these garments demonstrate that either. However, I think it's important to remind ourselves that this sexist tradition is not based in Muslim cultures. And it's also based in Judaism, in Zoroastrianism, in a lot of Christian ones. You know, it's rampant, these kinds of ideas. There's a lot of arguments, right, that is that the reason why it's common in the areas of the Middle East has nothing to do with Islam, but with the non-Islamic histories of those regions. So I don't think that the level of liberation we demand should be limited based on where you come from or your skin color, which is kind of where I see the feminist discussion taking us. And I do think that people should be critical of the consequences of that, right? But I do want to reiterate that I'm not sure that the government making legislation on this is a good idea. I don't know if that's a great way to solve it, because like Pastel mentioned, this often just forces already oppressed women to be forced inside and even more ostracized from their community. And I would rather discourage it through education and feminist literature and integration.
So Stardust, please.
I'm probably gonna monologue a little bit.
Go ahead.
Just as a warning in advance. So I am from a Muslim background, and I often call myself like a agnostic or atheist Muslim. And my family is very progressive, but not everybody has that privilege. I agree with what somebody had said earlier about sorry, I can't speak today. Incentivizing integration. I do think that burqas and niqabs are not signs of extremism, rather signs of traditional values and cultural practices. However, I do think that they are, in a way, oppressive, as they are fashion practices that are really only pressured upon women and not by men in that same community. Saying I know that this is going to be a real hot take, but burqas and niqabs, they to say that they aren't oppressive in some way is incorrect to me, because even in America, in a lot of different societies, or even societal groups, this wearing a burqa or wearing a niqab is something that there's a social pressure to do, right? So although these women are making the choice to wear these things, they are still being put, they still have this pressure being put on them, right? I think that it isolates them further from the societies that they're in, right? Because it's literally a covering that covers everything except for your eyes, right? I have no problem with ones that show the face, right? But you can't communicate to me that I just feel like you can't tell me that a practice which is a fashion practice, and where women are covering everything except for their eyes, like even their mouth, the thing that they speak with, right? You can't tell me that that is not oppressive in some way, right? Because the men don't have that same societal pressure as the women
And
do.
they're so uncomfortable to wear.
And
Sorry.
well, I can't even speak on I can't speak on that, and I don't women do make the choice to put those on, but it's a dated cultural practice, in my opinion, right? However, um with all of those points aside, I don't think that banning the burqa or the niqab is helpful in any way. I don't think that it's something that would help people integrate. I think it would. I think that it is, like somebody else said, going to isolate people further, right? The real way that you want to communicate to those communities of people is you want to help them integrate, right? Help them come out of their shells, right? And that requires, again, cultural change. And it can happen within a couple of generations, right? It will happen within a couple of generations naturally. But there, to speed up that process, you can, like, we as a group, as a society, can go out and try to help them integrate, right? I just the whole idea of banning a way of dress is just women going from men telling them or suggesting to them that they should wear this thing, or they won't be accepted, to another man telling them they should wear this thing or they won't be accepted, right? So it's just it's the same thing with a different label. But yeah, that's my hot take, basically.
Well, thank you, Stardust. I'll have to say that I agree with damn near everything you just said. I thought that was really well said. My only thing is that, like, I'm always for, like, more liberation, right? So letting people do what they want with their bodies, right? I start with that principle. So, like, it clashes here. There's a really tough one for that mindset, because it clashes. Well, if you say you want to wear it, then who might tell you not to wear it, right? And then, but on the other side, you're like, well, banning it is not like a government saying that you can't. It's just another person telling you what to do with your body, right? So yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, it's got to be like a cultural change where you want them to, like, drop this. If you think that's a bad thing, like, give them the option to do that in a welcoming environment. But I think you really crushed it there. But Alice, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I actually just have a question. So, Stardust, would you say that this is something that's forced on women in these communities? Like, wearing these types of coverings, is this something that's forced? Or is it more like the pressure to like to dress femininely that Western cultures have, where
Yes.
there's a
I
pretty
would
heavy
say
pressure.
yeah. I would say it's more of a pressure, right? But I would say that the pressure is much more, I feel like, heavy from within those within these groups, because it is the pressure from your family and pressure from a religious aspect, right? Whereas the pressure from being feminine is not necessarily religious. It's just kind of what uh it's just what it is, right? So I would say it obviously, like I said before, women do make the choice to put the burqa or put the niqab on, right? And that is their choice. But to say that there isn't a societal pressure um to do exactly that is kind of like missing the point, right?
Right.
There is an illusion of choice here, right? It's important to remember that um, I think someone brought up one of, I call them like liberal excuse tagline propagandas. Um, Someone brought up one of those lines, which is like, it's being seen, I'm being seen for what's inside and not what's outside. That's something that I've heard regularly in my community too, as a way to excuse really oppressive garments. But that doesn't, but just because women say that doesn't necessarily make it true. um because we've been brainwashed regularly and shoved with tons of propaganda with that kind of socialization that it's often a coping mechanism, right, to try to justify a lot of those things. In Orthodox Judaism, there is a tradition where, and the Jewish people here will know this, right? Where uh, where basically the groom, before the bride walks down the aisle, the groom has this big ceremony, walks into the room where the bride is, and her veil is over her head, like on the back of her head, and he takes her veil as everyone's singing and brings it to the front of her head and covers her face with the veil. Um, so the way almost all the Orthodox Jewish women that I know, I used to be so excited about this tradition. It was so beautiful, right? Because the husband is saying that he's marrying you for what's inside and not what's outside. But the real story is that the reason that's not, like, that might be why the rabbis are selling us that tradition now, but that's not why it exists. The reason why that law happens is because of the story of Jacob, when he was trying to find in the Bible, when he was trying to find a wife, and he got married to Leah, and was given Leah accidentally. And Leah was so ugly, he didn't want to be with her, and he would much rather be with Rachel. And so it was much more about making sure that he's not being lied to and sold the wrong bride. It's a sexist tradition. And that's just the truth. And it's about the husband saying that he owns the beauty and it is no longer for other men. And that's why afterwards the woman is never allowed to show her hair. So, like, I know it sounds good and it feels nice to be like, oh, like everyone, these traditions are so beautiful and there's, like, we can find diversity amongst them, but like we have to, it's just ignoring like the histories of where these things come from, and the real pressures that women are under in order to enjoy these things, right? Like, the most oppression does not happen with people saying, oh, you have to do this or I'll kill you. It happens through subtle ways, through subtle propaganda, through subtle socialization, and we need to be honest about that stuff with ourselves too.
So we'll go to Pastel, Art, then Maddie.
So I completely agree that these clothings probably do represent, or I will even like die on the hill that they probably do represent oppression. However, I would never ever want to pass this policy because I am like 100% sure this is just going to lead to an alienation of a community, which is like how you like, it's how you bring about what people are going to consider social deviance in like in sociology and stuff, which is like not good. We shouldn't be like alienating people so that they don't feel part of society, because like first off, that has like huge psychological effects on people. That's just like really bad. And it's probably not great for a society to be like, oh, we don't agree with this, let's just alienate them, who cares, like we'll just move the problem somewhere else, and then however they deal with it is how they deal with it. I think we should instead be attacking like the core cultural issues here, instead of just banning clothing of a group and hoping that's going to like actually do anything, because it's not. You're literally going to make the only problem, you're going to make the problem only worse. 100% this is going to be like have huge probably social ramifications for the country, and probably like 5 to 10 years, I'd be willing to bet on like everything that this is going to like make issues worse there.
I understand that, but I also think it's fair for a community to be like, considering how much traditions and attitudes get spread around the world. As I mentioned, that that idea was not. It's not a part of Islam. There's no part of Islamic law that it exists, but it got spread through culture. So I think it totally makes sense for a community to also be like, okay, I don't want that. I don't want that tradition here. I don't like it. Right?
I'd agree. I think it's fine to do that socially,
fair,
but by law, I think it's bad.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason, and I agree with you, Pastel, but I also understand like what, that's a pretty hardline way to go about it, and it probably does solve it, I guess, very quickly. Even though, yeah, you're right, it has other ramifications. But I understand like if you're much more worried about specifically that tradition and everything, it makes sense kind of to outlaw it.
Let's go to Ark, Maddie, Stardust, then Alice.
Yeah. This is why in my opening statements I really made very clear that like I don't know a whole lot about this. I really, really appreciated Stardust's words because you kind of educated me. This is also kind of why I made my point in saying like I don't know if these garments are oppressive or not, but I think that using the tactics saying that they are is a scapegoat for Islamophobia. I think that